Welcome to Sarkazknights in 10 minutes. This will be a general overview of everything an Arknights player needs to know about Sarkazknights, so if you would like me to make additional videos going more in depth on topics such as individual operators, strategies, and more, please let me know in the comments section down below. Prior knowledge on Arknights gameplay is required to fully understand this video. Sarkazknights is a squad limitation challenge similar to 3 stars only or Sniper Knights, with the challenge being that you can only use units from the Sarkaz race. This includes the 12 operators you see here, Flamebringer, who is shown here, Regular Lava, who is basically a worse version of Lava the Purgatory, and Storm Eye, a sniper who is currently exclusive to the Integrated Strategies game mode. Storm Eye and Regular Lava aside, these 13 operators will generally make up the core of all of your Sarkazknights runs. However, if you're willing to bend the rules a little bit, there are 3 potential exceptions to the Sarkaz only rule that you can use however you see fit. The justification for these exceptions does come down to lore, so if you wish to remain unspoiled, please skip ahead in the video. This is your first and only warning. That said, these exceptions include Amiya, a single target caster with the distinctive ability to class convert into an Arch Guard, with more class conversions expected to be added in the future. The robots, including Robot Horse, aka Justice Knight, as shown here, who is currently only available on the CN server. And Mostema, a fallen angel who we arguably know even less about than Amiya herself. Amiya is effectively the true Sarkaz king and possesses Sarkaz arts she inherited from Teresa. While the truth behind some aspects of her true nature, such as her race being classified as part Chimera, is still unknown, I consider her a reasonable exception due to her status as the Lord of Fiends, also known as the Sarkaz king meant to bring destruction to all of Terra, as well as her possession of centuries worth of Sarkaz arts and memories. Mostema is similar in that her true nature is still unknown as well, but there are simply too many questions left unanswered going into 2022 for me to recommend her as a reasonable exception. For instance, the origins, powers, and sentience of her staves, the state of her physiology, the ties between the Sancta and Sarkaz, the various details in her E2 and Spellbreaker splash arts. Really, breaking down Mostema in her entirety would require a video of its own, so suffice to say that it's too early for me to deem her as a reasonable exception. I get flack for using and recommending Amiya as is, so Mostema would just worsen matters tenfold. Thankfully, the robots, including Justice Knight, are far easier to justify. Due to their unique functions as stat boosts more than anything else, they're already used as exceptions in other squad limitation challenges. And the fact that their programming has presumably been modified by a certain money-sucking vampire means that our greedy merchant likely has a backdoor in all of their systems. That means that, as necessary, she can likely mind control them and basically hijack them, take full control, that sort of thing, and bring them over to the Sarkaz side. You get the idea. In fact, Closure has either outright stated or heavily implied to have already reprogrammed the main 3, so given that she's also worked on Justice Knight, it's safe to assume that this reprogramming also applies to our wacky robot horse as well. Moving into Sarkazknight's strengths and weaknesses, you're essentially acquiring some of the strongest units in the game, such as Surtur, Mudrock, Ifrit, and W, all of whom are considered the best in their respective archetypes, for A, virtually non-existent DP gen, B, slow setup capability, and C, poor single-target aerial damage. The main challenge of Sarkazknights is to survive the first minute of a stage with 4 cheap ground units, 3 of which are 1 block, while Midnight, who is by far the weakest of the bunch, serves as the only 2 block. This is exacerbated further when you realize that while Surtur's skill 2 is effective, her use as a lane holder is situational at best due to the sheer importance of her skill 3. Worse still, of the 6 Sarkaz units that cost 25 or more DP, 5 are Sarkazknights only answered as aerial units, while the 6th, Mudrock, is both the only 3-block unit that Sarkazknights has, and is the most expensive operator in the game. It's not a good answer to aerial units either, as not only can you not use Regular Lava and Purgatory together, you're only left with AoE Snipers, Ifrit, and Purgatory as your only answers to aerial units in general. This means that stressing over aerial heavy stages just isn't worth it, especially ones with suboptimal Ifrit placement. Outside of that, Sarkazknights also lacks a high amount of single target physical damage, but this is generally remedied by Surtur just existing. There are a few simple rules to follow when attempting Sarkazknights, and I recommend you memorize these to heart. Vinya and Surtur are the most important units in the challenge. Vinya is your only DP generator as well as a cheap but strong lane holder that will practically carry you through the first minute all on her own. Surtur can also lane hold while possessing 2 multi-target skills, ludicrous DPS, and excellent longevity. Second, don't deploy medics until absolutely necessary. With only a single on-kill Vanguard and the stage itself as your forms of DP gen, you're going to need every point of DP gen you can get to deploy your operators in time. All of the 1-blocks are rather resilient, so trust them and focus on deploying your damage dealers first. Third, assume that Midnight and Vinya's RNG will fail you. W's 60% dodge rate on her ambush talent is high enough to count on, but Midnight sits at a measly 20% proc rate for her skill, while Vinya only reaches 30% during her skill duration, otherwise it's 10%. Plan for the worst and treat favorable RNG as a nice bonus. Fourth, understand the use cases of Mudrock's skill 3. Both of Mudrock's skills are excellent, but her skill 3's utility should not be downplayed. You're getting a 10-second invulnerability with a 60-second slow, plus a 5-second stun, and a 20-second stat boost, and she hits all blocked enemies with reduced attack interval, and it has a cheap SP cost. Really, the only thing limiting the skill is your ability to time it, to the point where, generally speaking, you'll be using skill 2 for lane holding, whereas skill 3 is mainly for utility and brief bursts of brutal beatings. Fifth, and I can't believe I'm saying this, consider investing in Flamebringer's skill 1. Flamebringer is generally considered weak compared to other operators, as well as the flaws in his talent and skill 2, but not only are those operators ineligible for this challenge, his skill 1 is not gated by the requirement to really ramp up too much. It's, I believe, 5 SP cost at minimum, which means that you're going to be getting a self-heal and a damage boost reliably, again, without any of that ramp up, to the point where he can, at least somewhat reliably, hold individual lanes on his own. This doesn't mean he's great, but it does mean he has uses that I will hopefully be able to explore in a future video. Finally, use as few units as possible to optimize setup time and cost. This is a great way to lower your reliance on DP gen in general while learning how to best optimize your operator use, like just using your operators in general, getting a feel for them, and you'll generally feel prouder clearing something with 5 operators than you would have 12. Looking forward to the future, the most important update coming to Sarkazknights is in Vinya's module. Plus 80 attack while her skill is active is already good, but a 15% damage boost on units below 40% health will make her early game reliability skyrocket. Do not sleep on this change and prioritize her module first if you can. Outside of that, Nightingale's module is also worth noting, as the extra tile of range can enable setups that were previously impossible before, or only usable with her skill 3. There are other changes as well, such as stat buffs to AoE casters and Dreadnought guards like Flamebringer, but these are not significant enough to really change things much. As of recording, there are no upcoming Sarkaz operators that we know of, though personally I'm hoping for Ines to be released sometime in 2022, as she could be a highly reasonable exception due to her thematically appropriate shadow arts, experience as a Sarkaz mercenary, and the fact that she literally sharpens her horns to look more like a Sarkaz. She may not be an actual Sarkaz, but she certainly acts like one. Personally, if I had to ask for any Sarkaz unit of any archetype to be added, I'd pick a 5-star Tactician Vanguard, in other words, Beanstalk's archetype. Tactician Vanguards generate a decent amount of DP, they can hit aerial units, and they possess unit reinforcements that have tremendous potential in higher rarity kits. Remember, Beanstalk is only a 4-star. Honestly, the possibility of a 2-block Vanguard that can hit aerial units is simply too good to pass up, especially as unit reinforcements can self-heal. In general, though, the future is really hard to predict, but assuming I continue attempting Sarkazknights through 2022, I will post a follow-up video at the end of the year highlighting what I learned, what I figured out, what I may have messed up, anything else. I won't ask you to join me through this scuffed journey. My editing and gameplay just aren't good enough to deserve that, but I certainly won't stop you either. Thank you for watching, and here's to a decent 2022.